One More Thing podcast. Today, I am joined with Josh Blank.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
Thank you for being here.
It was a fun weekend.
It was a great weekend. All the feedback that I got was super positive.
Good.
And this was your first time doing a monologue.
Yeah, I mean, it was intense. I didn't sleep much the night before. I was with you Saturday night, and then I laid in bed and was like, you can't mess this up. So it was a little bit of a sleepless night, but I think it went great. I got good feedback as well, and I feel like it was something I wanted to say, something I felt good about, and I feel great. I mean, it was a great experience.
Yeah, no, you obviously you did really well, and this isn't the first time you've been on Suncoast stage. You and I have
warmed it up slow.
Right. Yeah, we at least introduced who Josh Blank was in past dialogue setups, but dialogue is so different than monologue.
Way easier.
Yeah,
I can just, hey, Ricardo, and then you'll save me and jump in and be like, what about this? I'm like, yeah, way easier.
Yeah. No, so there's a lot of pressure built around monologue, and I've said this to Larry so many times. I don't know how you get up and do it every single week.
It's a skill, right? Public speaking is a skill, but I think you also just have to be extremely aware of who you are and know that if you have a gaffe or you have a mess up, that other human beings they're really not ready to pounce on that if you've never spoken before publicly, you think everybody's ready to jump on it, and they're really not. Right. So you can make a mess up. If you listen to Larry speak, he's a wonderful speaker, but everybody has gaffes. Right. I mean, the best of the best have a little moment or a tick or a weird thing that happens. You just got to be really comfortable with what the topic is, what you're talking about, and just know that people are generally pretty good, and they kind of want to have a good experience, so they're not really looking for you to mess up. Right. It's not like you're doing stand up for the first time and people are ready to boo you off the stage.
Exactly. It's definitely a little bit lower expectation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Nobody's coming to church on Sunday and being like, "This guy better make me laugh. He better make me laugh, or I'm gonna boo him."
No. Hopefully, I got no boos.
Yeah. So. No. Well, and Nick, our friend Nick, was gonna sit in the front row and boo you, but
boo,
just to humble you a little bit.
Oh man, I don't need any more humbling, but life will do that to you alone, right?
Right. Well, and I think
but that's Nick's role in the group. He is supposed to boo me.
Yeah, he's Zach Galifianakis. So.
Yes. Yes. And Jesse's I'm Bradley Cooper, right? Come on, Jesse. That was great.
But I think what you said, the point you made, that the subject matter really is important, and this subject is something that you've been talking about, feeling for a long time since you've come to Suncoast. So 100%. I think it came across so authentic. And I know some of the people on staff, when they saw your points, they got a little nervous.
Sure.
They're like, oh boy.
No, I wasn't really trying to spit fire, but it was more from a place of it's the hospital courtroom thing. I said it a bunch of times. I'll probably never stop saying it. It's just something that I think that's what church is about, right? Mm-hmm. You get beat up in life enough Monday through Friday. The last thing you need to do is get scolded on Sunday.
Right.
And I think that's, Larry as a, kind of the leader, and you really reflect that. His children reflect that. It's you guys are all really cool. I've messed up and you know all about it, and you're never remember when you messed up. You're always hey, that's life, that happens, and move forward. Right. So I don't think people need more correction. I think everybody knows their sins. Everybody knows what they struggle with. They don't need to be pounded in the head with it. And it's your children, right? It's like parenting, right? When my son has a temper tantrum or something, me then screaming at him doesn't do anything. But when you hit him with love, or you hit him with a different approach, so much more effective.
Right. So I think we were actually having a conversation this morning with Troy. I'm
so excited. I got to meet him. I'm so excited about Troy. Yeah,
he's going to be awesome. And for people who are watching who don't know Troy, he'll be introduced this weekend. So
I am geeked. And there's very few people I've met, and in a couple of moments, it was a Larry moment, or when I met you, it was a moment I could just tell this guy's different and he's special. There's something really special about him. You could feel it instantly.
Yeah, agreed. But we were having a conversation about confession.
Yeah.
And the value of confession is there. The value of confessing and surrendering and reflection on this has to be self-reflective.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the mistakes that you have made. It's not me coming at you and being like, shame, 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 because shame doesn't work. You talk to Laura.
It doesn't work.
Shame does not work. But confession and self-reflection works.
Totally.
So my role as your friend, Larry's role as your pastor, is not to say, do whatever you want,
right?
But to provide an environment to you that you can honestly self-reflect and be like, I've messed up. I've not lived up to my full potential. And then I can come alongside my community, and they're going to love me through it.
100%.
That's the point of this.
I think that's a really huge point. Like, I think I'm not coming up here saying like, well, I'm a goofball and I always do stupid things and they don't care. You're right. That's a huge nuance.
Right.
Like, you're never like, oh yeah, just get as drunk as you want, do all the drugs you want, like do anything, promiscuous you want. None of you guys are saying that, but you're creating, like you said, you're creating that environment where no matter what, there's going to be an open door here, which is amazing, right? Like, you're not promoting stupidity. Right?
No, and I think that's something that gets misconstrued quite a bit about Suncoast. Is like, oh, you guys just don't believe in convictions and that you just say do whatever you want, and it's
not true at all.
It's not true at all. No. It's that we are going to take the Father's role in the fact that no matter how much you screwed up, we're going to run towards you and we're going to help you through the recovery of that, as opposed to
100%
sinner.
Yep.
Sinner, you're going to hell.
All that does, the sinner, you're going to hell stuff, all that does is make people, number one, hate the church, and number two, hate themselves.
Exactly.
And what you guys do, your approach is just like, you don't really get into the weeds of like the details of what I'm doing wrong. It's not that you don't care, you care, but you're just not, you're concerned with like, okay, like the hospital. The hospital's like, how did you fall off the motorcycle, you dummy? They're like, okay, let's treat your wounds.
Right.
And like, sure, later you're like, hey man, don't do wheelies going down 75, 100 miles an hour, right?
Exactly.
So like that said, if anything corrective is ever said, you and I say it privately.
Well, and because we have a relationship.
Right. No, there's a real foundation there. It's not
I have
like
a relationship with you.
Right.
And you do the same to me when I'm not living up to my fullest potential. That's what a relationship does. Is your friends, the community around you is like, yes, you don't treat them when they're down and broken, but you help them along through that recovery and then say, hey, like maybe don't do this again.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe the motorcycle 100 miles an hour wheelie, no helmet.
Right. Wasn't a good idea.
Probably don't do that. But there's so little of that. You guys don't even need to really say a whole lot of that because when you bandage somebody's wounds, when you're good to somebody when they're hurting, when you're restorative in nature, the other part, everybody knows not to do the stupid things they're doing. Everybody knows, right? Like if you struggle with drugs, for example, or whatever your thing you're into or you have a problem with, everybody knows they're messing up. You don't really need to tell people, don't do the bad thing. Everybody's wired to know this is the bad thing I struggle with. So just the fact that it's a reparative place pretty much means you don't really need to say a whole lot more, because the act of the healing is a little bit of the insinuation of like, hey, don't do that. So
well, and it's just about the approach, right? So there's two approaches.
The approach.
So there's the fear approach, which is motivating. Fear motivates people to act a certain way. If they're afraid that they're going to be judged or sent to hell, then they may stay away from that for a little while.
But it always gets them eventually.
It's not a long-term plan.
It doesn't work.
But if you inspire people through love, like if your kids were just constantly afraid of you, that if they mess up, they're going to receive the beat down of their lifetime all the time, what kind of healthy relationship would that be? And those kids would grow up to not be functioning human adults. Like they would have a very, very like messed up psychology. But if you love your children through whatever it is that they're doing, and our number one goal at Suncoast is to inspire people to be as Christ-like as they possibly can. And through that inspiration, they will abandon the things that they know are not good for them. They will abandon or at least try to control the things that they know will not help them live up to their fullest potential. And when we can live up to our fullest potential as a church, as a community, that has a much bigger impact on the world than any hell message could ever have.
No, and it's, the thing that comes to my mind is like imagine like your children, right? Like if they're scared of the beatdown, like when you said that, I'm like exactly, because what they become really good at doing is just hiding the thing. Right? Like they sneak out at night or whatever, right? Like they just hide it from you because they don't want to get yelled at, right? Like if I tell my son like no more sodas and like, you know, I'm going to scream at him if he does and then ground him or whatever, right? Like sodas is bad. Like later on it's drugs or whatever, or promiscuity or whatever the thing that's not good for them is. But when I sit and I explain to my son, like, hey, listen, if you want to have, you know, like better health and your teeth not rot out of your head and all this kind of stuff, and you take that approach, it just works so much better. And then maybe they could see like, oh yeah, I do. Like getting my son to brush his teeth is brutal, right?
Yeah, every kid. Yeah.
My daughter is not so bad, right? She just automatically does it, but I really have to work on him. But I was like, listen, you know, like when we go to the dentist and they have to like drill in your teeth, like I don't want you to have to go through that. So like let's work on the positive end of it. It never works when I'm like, I'm going to yell at you if you don't brush your teeth.
Because I said so. Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Right.
It's like, hey, bud, you want to have nicer teeth? Like, you know, you want to have braces and have a nice smile and, you know, have, you know, people think you're cute or whatever it is, whatever the motivation is. The carrot always works better than the stick.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I think this place is about and the carrot is really community here. You know, it's a feeling of like, hey, I can pop in there, I can be who I am. You know, I don't have to be a saint, right? Like I think the game of playing the saint in church is just preposterous. You know, again, you're not like promoting bad behavior, but you're also like, hey, we're human beings, right? Like, and I just dig that, you know. So that's been my experiences. I saw people play church before, you know, and I just was like, well, you act this way outside of the church, and then you act this way at home, and I see you, and I know who you are. Like, it's a game, right? Like the game is silly. Yeah. Like I'm way past the game. Like it's like I'm 40 on the outside, but it's like I'm 65 on the inside. And like I think the older you get, the more you're like, yeah, I'm just done with the games.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you ask anybody outside the church, probably one of the number one responses of like when you think of a Christian, what's the one word that comes to mind? And hypocrite is at the top of that list.
That's the point of my whole thing is like, look, I can be me, be authentic. I am not this like squeaky clean dude. I'm just not. And I'm done even thinking that that's what a Christian is.
Right.
You know, because I just don't see it in reality. Like the real world versus the people on TV or the people pretending on stage. And that's not you guys, right? That's not Suncoast and what you guys do. And then reality, I'm like, I'd rather just have authentic.
Right.
You know, like I'd rather just you be you and be real. And I love that. I love that it's a real connection because people don't really care about what you know or what you think or anything unless they know that you actually give a rip about them and their life.
Right.
And when they know you care, the little thing, you don't even have to say like, Josh, you know, it'd be better if you didn't do this. Just like you can hint at it. Yeah. Like, hey man, it sounds like that was a rough deal or what, you know, you don't even have to be overt with it.
Right.
So.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the best visuals from this weekend, I think it was in the 9 o'clock service when you were reading the prodigal son story. Yeah. And I got choked up when you were reading it too.
I couldn't get through it.
Yeah, it's that
it caught me.
The visual of the father running to the son.
Right.
You know, that is, I know it's Larry's favorite story. It's one of my favorite stories. Just this visual of God's not just waiting for you to come back to him, but he's running to you.
That's the best part.
It's the best part about the whole thing, you know, and there's this grace that's unimaginable in the sense of like, the father's not just sitting there on his porch waiting for you to come kiss his feet and beg for you beg for forgiveness. Yep. He's running towards you.
Right. It's not the picture of a king. It's a picture of a father.
Right.
Like a king would be like, come and worship me.
Exactly.
And it's like, I that visual, like I almost feel like we should you guys should shoot a video, right? I could picture like your video team is so good and then your music team is so good. Like I could picture you guys doing a video of that scene and like the father, the wrinkled face, the sitting on the porch and just like, you know, charging towards the son when he sees him on the distance, like from a long way off. And that's what got me is like, you can be like me. You can be a long way from perfect or a long way from the father or a long way from your ideal. But just if you can make an inch, if you can move just an inch towards the father, it's not like you got to be like, well, I'll never have a drink again in my whole life, and I'll never say a swear word, and I'll never. It's like if I can just inch towards a better life, just move that inch, he'll meet you.
Yeah.
He'll come running.
It's a great visual.
It's the most beautiful visual. Yeah. Like I picture myself in it. I can see, you know, I can just see it, you know. So
it's amazing. Well, you did an amazing job this weekend.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that people will love to have you back whenever you're ready to do another monologue.
I think, we talked about this a little bit. I think I got some other things to say.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for coming on the One More Thing podcast, Josh.
Thank you. You're the man. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks.